And I talked to a lot of people that worked at the Pullman back in the day, as well as I interviewed the assistant manager there at the time. He told me one incredible story. A little after 5 in the morning, he was the first one to get there. He went up the steps and put the key in to open the door. And he heard, as he opened the door, he actually heard a piano playing from inside the restaurant.
Welcome, everybody, to a very haunted episode of Odd Virginia. It is a happy Halloween, and I hope you are pigging out on some coffee and drinking some candy, and that you have a dentist appointment somewhere in your near future. For today's episode, I was very privileged to speak with Marty Seibel, the owner of Ghosts of Staunton. You guys may see them every fall doing the ghost tours in the evening around the downtown area. He's also a paranormal investigator. So we get to hear some stories that he's gathered from here in Staunton, as well as from his investigations further afield. And we're going to get to all of those stories post-haste. And if you enjoy Marty's stories, find the links in the show notes below to support this show. Because there are going to be more stories coming up on Patreon, a very special Round 2 episode where we talk with some of the other tour guides for the Ghosts of Staunton Ghost Tours. And you're not going to want to miss it. So find our Patreon link down below in the show notes, or sign up for a Buzzsprout subscription, where you can listen to those special episodes on whatever podcasting app you like to listen to it on. And if you'd also like to have your story featured on the show, you can get in touch by emailing me at oddvirginia@protonmail.com. That's oddvirginia@protonmail.com, or calling the Little Oddities voice line and leaving a brief voicemail message sharing your story. The number for the Little Oddities voice line is 540-416-9690. That's 540-416-9690. Please reach out and tell your story, because here at Odd Virginia,
we're ready to believe you.
All right, today on the show, I am very excited to have Marty, the owner of the Ghosts of Staunton. Marty, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Alex.
Yeah, I'm really glad you could take some time out of the busy October schedule you guys have to tell our audience a little bit about Ghosts of Staunton, share with us some stories, whatever you may have. Now, Marty, if you want to just really briefly give us a little bit about yourself, it doesn't really matter what, just something for some familiarity.
Okay, well, my name is Marty Seibel. I've lived in Staunton, Virginia. I call it Staunton, for well over 50 years now. I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland. I have a deep interest in history and the paranormal. Basically got involved in this field about 23 years ago, and it started out as just really a simple hobby. Everything you'd watch on television, the Travel Channel, the History Channel, so many wonderful locations to go to that were so rich in history, but yet had ghostly paranormal activity. I was very intrigued by that, and I'd always sit there and tell myself, you know what, I want to go there and do that. So I started a hobby of doing such, and then a few years later, I was joined by my girlfriend, who moved down here from Pennsylvania, and we've been basically pretty much all over most of the country, doing as many different haunted B&Bs, taverns, locations, you name it. Just something to see. It's been an adventure.
Oh, so you've been out sightseeing well past Virginia when it comes to the haunted spots.
Absolutely. The furthest I've actually went out, did Tombstone, Arizona back in 2018. We actually went out there, and that was for a paranormal investigation, of which I am a paranormal investigator as well. We investigated the Birdcage Theater. Really cool. I'm a big Tombstone fan. The Old West, loved it. Great trip, great investigation. Yeah.
Well, that's a part of the country I've always wanted to go to myself. Before we get into some of the stories that you have of your paranormal investigations and whatnot, I was wondering if you started out as a skeptic and had an inciting event which made you a believer, or have you always just known that this stuff is out there?
Well, I'll put it to you like this. I am a believer. I am, but I'm with a healthy skepticism, so to speak. I like to, when things happen, I question them. Did that really just happen? Was it the wind maybe that blew something over? You know what I'm saying? Just process through the whole situation. There is a certain experience that I had, well, actually my girlfriend had, that kind of really tipped the scales a little bit more in favor. And that was a visit to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. The very first time I had taken Lisa, that's my girlfriend, had taken her out, we decided to do a bed and breakfast in Gettysburg called the Farnsworth House. And I'm a big Civil War history buff. I love Civil War history, particularly Gettysburg. And to me, Gettysburg I would say that now is basically a paranormal playground. So we decided to go up there, do a 2-night stay in this B&B. It had actually served as a hospital during and after the Battle of Gettysburg. It's also thought that the attic there was used as a Confederate sniper post, and that the shot that killed the only civilian there, Jenny Wade, was fired from that attic. So we knew some stories in regards to being haunted by Confederate soldiers. We were very much intrigued, decided to do a 2-night stay, go up. As normal with us, we check in on a Friday night, and as normal tradition with us, Lisa, by 10 or 10:30, asleep, snoring away, and very loudly. I'm a creature of the night. Even to this day, I'm up till about 3 or 3:30. Finally, about that time, I lie down and turn the lamp off, and I just start to drift off to sleep. And the bed is so comfortable, it's warm, and I thought I was in heaven. I literally felt like I was in the clouds. And the next thing I know, she wakes up, and she is literally screaming her head off, and she's raking her nails up and down my arm. And I'm about off the bed about 3 feet high, and I'm like, what the is wrong with you? I mean, come on, what? And she's literally screaming on and on for over a full minute. And I'm like, Lisa, you got to be quiet. You're going to wake up everybody in this house, and we're going to get tossed out of here. Please. Easy. I said, slowly. Stop. I said, what? And she said, there was a woman in our room. And my first reaction was, oh, no. No, Lisa. No. She says, I'm telling you, there was a woman in our room. So I get her to calm down. I said, look, tell me everything. I want to know what, where, when. I want it all in what order. Just give me the whole thing. So she said she's lying there, and she's actually facing me. So she's got her back to the wall where the fireplace is. And she said she felt a tap up on her shoulder. She didn't pay any mind. And then a few minutes later, there was a little nudge on the bottom of her shoulder blade. She still didn't pay it any mind. A few minutes after that, it was a solid push on her hip. She said by this time she was annoyed. I think she thought it was probably me just playing a joke or something. But she rolls over, and there standing right above the bed looking down on her was a woman in Victorian clothing. She was semi-transparent. She had the sepia color, sepia tone. That's the color she was. If you know, like old-time photography, that's the color she was. She said that the woman was close enough to her, she could have put her arm right through her. She could describe the design on her blouse, everything, her hair up in a bun. She looked very sad. It was like almost like she was crying. But the thing that really freaked Lisa out was they locked eyes. Lisa screamed, poof, she disappears, and then that's where I come in. So I'm like, wow, okay. So I am, and this is how my mind processes. I am trying to rationally think this out, and I'm telling her, look, Lisa, you're excited. I'm excited. Our first haunted excursion. You know, like I said, we're both excited. You want it. God knows I want it. I said, I think you just had a bad dream. I said, why don't you go back to sleep? We'll leave the bathroom light on. And when we go down for breakfast in the morning, we will tell the staff and see what they say. So she was fine with that. A few minutes later, it's not even 10 minutes later, and believe it or not, she's out cold again, snoring louder than she was before.
Not even shaken up.
Yeah, can't make it up. But anyways, I didn't share this with her, but I was like, wow, that's pretty cool if there's something to it. So I had a few video cameras with me, so I'm pulling out some video cameras. I got one on the fireplace. I got one focused on the bed. I got another on the closet. I got a couple of audio recorders out, and I'm thinking, oh, God, if we could get this on video or audio, can you imagine? I mean, I'm not super excited. I'm basically inviting whoever was there to come back. So I have everything set up. I go back to bed, and I didn't get much sleep in between her snoring and me being excited about, you know, the possibility of capturing something. So basically, and I'm sorry to say this, the only thing we captured on video was her snoring, elbowing me in the head, and me cussing her all night long. And I wasted 6 hours watching it. I got room on the video camera. But anyways, we get up Saturday morning. We get out for breakfast, and Lisa tells the staff what had happened. And they said, oh, that was Nan. And we were like, well, who the heck is Nan? They said, well, she was a midwife, and there was a stillborn baby lost in that room in the 1870s. And a lot of times she will interact with women. They said sometimes she'll actually sit on the end of your bed and just sit there. Well, I'm like, wow, okay, that's really good to know. Oh, interesting. Did not know that. Had no idea about that. So we go into Saturday night. It's pretty much the exact same routine as Friday night. 10:30. She's asleep, and she's snoring louder than Friday night. I mean, she's got it going on. Anyways, me, I'm still pretty, excited at the potential possibility of capturing something on video or audio. So I've actually doubled the arsenal. I've got more cameras out now, and I've got a couple extra audio recorders. I've got everything set up, every angle covered. And I'm thinking, again, I'm like, oh God, I hope she comes. Well, again, it was a pretty uneventful night. There was no screaming out of Lisa. Nothing. It was a pretty quiet night. The only thing, again, I'm sad to say, the only thing we captured on video was her snoring very loudly, elbowing me in the head, and me cussing her all night long. And I spent another 6 months watching that when I got home. So that's 12 hours right there. But anyways, we get up Sunday morning. We go down for breakfast, and I asked her, I said, how did you sleep, Lisa? She said, well, I slept pretty good, but I felt the tapping again on my shoulder. And she said, basically, she was afraid. She said, I was afraid. So she said, I didn't open my eyes, I just froze, and she said after about 10 minutes, it went away. So for the longest time after that, we were kind of in between back and forth. Was it a bad dream? Was it, but I'm here to tell you that actually happened 19 years ago last month. And it's almost like it's haunted her. It stayed with her all this time. She could describe this to you like it happened last night. Everything from the facial expressions, the mannerisms of the woman, her blouse, everything about her. So we do think it's potentially something to it. In recent years, I had done a little bit of research, and we actually had found a photograph of the woman that Lisa claimed she witnessed in the room that night.
Oh, wow.
Now, whether or not, I'm not sure if that's Nan, but the woman it's an older woman, and she has that lazy eye. And as you know, back in that time, with photographs, nobody really smiled. So it's not a very pleasant photograph. And I told her, I said, look, Lisa, I'll cut you a little bit of slack, because had I witnessed a woman like that in my room, night, dark, over top of the bed, looking down, I probably would have yelled too. I cut her a little bit of slack. So we do think it was potentially something to it, just because it stayed with us all this time. I will tell you, in the early days of our paranormal group, Lisa did go out and investigate with us, and she hung around for about 2 or 3 years. But as you can tell from my story, she's not a night person. So she pretty much gave it up, and she tells me even to this day, she says, you run along, play, have as much fun with your little friends as you want, just don't bring anybody home, and don't play with the equipment in the house. Of which I go, yeah, sure, I got you. It's funny too, because if anything happens in the house now and it spooks her the slightest, I'm the first to find out about it, because she hits me with a newspaper or magazine over the head. But says, I told you not to bring anybody home. But long story short, where I'm going with this is about 7 years ago, and up to about, I don't know, within a 2-year period, I'd actually taken our team, minus Lisa, back to the Farnsworth house and investigated the whole house from the basement all the way up to the attic. And we had come out of there, actually they were good investigations. We had come out of there with really good audio of what we believed to be Civil War soldiers, children, and women. But after investigations, in both cases, all of us would pick a room and go back and try to get as much sleep before we return home, before you get on the road and drive. So you want to be rested. I can tell you, in both situations, I went back to that same room, and I never slept better. I slept like a baby.
Because no one was snoring.
Lisa in there snoring and elbowing me in the head. It was wonderful. I do find in this field, though, it's kind of like when you least expect it. In 23 years, I'd love to tell you I've got a ton of personal experiences. I do not. I've never seen an apparition. I would love to. I have not. Most of my personal experiences, most of them involve audio, where I've been in a location investigating all by myself, running my audio recorder, going through my line of question, and I've heard a response in real time as if someone was standing right beside me.
Wow.
And understood the reply. I'm happy to say, I always joke around, I've not soiled myself yet. No, maybe next time, I don't know, but I haven't. But my attention immediately, it does surprise me. I'm like, wow. But my attention immediately goes to my audio recorder, and I'm thinking, oh, God, I hope it's on there. And in every case, every situation, it has been. So I can validate it. And it's the type of audio, if I were to play it for you, you would tell me what you hear, and I guarantee it would match up what I hear.
That's incredible.
That's one of the things when we like to discuss audio clips in this field, I don't like to tell anybody what I think an EVP will say, just because I don't want to plant the seed of suggestion.
Right.
I want you to tell me what you hear.
Oftentimes, EVPs can be so very incoherent.
Yes, it can. That's one of the hardest things is being able to decipher what's being said. Of course, we have different classifications for those, but when you have something and you hear it and then you play it for someone without telling them and they hear the exact same thing, it's even a little bit more validation with it. And in these cases, when I've had these things happen, I've clearly understood what's being said, and in some cases even responded. And I thought, here I'm having a conversation. Hopefully that's being recorded. Because one situation, and I like to tell this because it was actually one of the first clips or voices I'd ever heard in real time, and that was in a fort up in Philadelphia called Fort Mifflin. It's a pre-Revolutionary War fort built by the Freemasons. Played a pivotal part during the American Revolution. It's labeled the fort that saved America, basically because the colonists were able to hold out long enough in the fort before the British took it over to allow George Washington and his army enough time to escape Philadelphia, go to Valley Forge, and he was able to restock his army and go on and eventually win the war. So it's kind of got that label with it. But anyways, I love it. Been there about 10 times now. But one occasion we were there and I was investigating alone, and I went in a powder magazine, a powder magazine with ammunition and whatnot. Well, it was empty, igloo type, kind of hollow. You have somewhat of an echo in there. But anyways, I had sat down and just decided I would run my audio recorder and do a line of questioning on basically some of the prisoners there, some of the soldiers that served there, just to try to connect. And I was using also a device, as I said there while I was running my recorder, a parabolic ear, which is basically something to amplify any sound or audio around in hopes of hearing something. So I'm sitting in there and I'm firing off question after question, doing our regular protocol where I ask a question, wait about 30, 40 seconds, and then ask another. And pretty much, Alex, for the whole time, for about 20, 25 minutes, nothing. It's pretty quiet. And so I make the comment that I'm going to pack up and leave. And it's not even 5 seconds later, I heard a whisper loud and clear that went, "Thank you." And I did jump a little bit. I scuttled. I was sitting there like, whoa, no, did I? And then I started laughing. And I said, "Do you really want me to leave?" And there was no reply after that. And then the next thing, again, my mind immediately goes to the recording. I'm like, oh, gosh, I hope that's on. And it was.
Excellent.
And it's clear as day.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, I haven't heard like that. And I was like, I could identify. I knew exactly. And being a man of my word, I did pack up my stuff and I left. But, yeah, I did not expect it. No, I mean, it's very quiet. I'm asking question after question, and I'm not hearing a peep of anything. It's just dead silence. And then that. And I was like, wow, okay. So, but anyways, that pretty much, those are pretty, good experiences that do, I guess. I've always been a believer, but it kind of increased that to, more so.
Yeah.
Just when you have those personal experiences.
So I was going to ask you, as a paranormal investigator, you have a team, right?
I do. I am the founder and director of a group called Black Raven Paranormal.
Okay.
We've been together since 2005. We're based out of Staunton, Virginia. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's excellent. That's excellent. And about the ghost tours as well. How long have you been doing that now?
Well, the ghost tours, we are celebrating our 16th season this year. I started them in 2008. And when we started out, it was just me and one other person. We were the only 2 tour guides, and we kind of did it on a trial basis. We thought we'd just do it for the month of October and see how it did. Well, it performed very well. We had large crowds, and it was very exciting to do, to be able to present the history of the town along with the ghost stories and people's personal experiences. So just decided to carry it on from there. And now here 16 years later, there's 10 tour guides. We have 4 different tour routes that we do for the month of October. And it's very exciting. It's grown so much. It's been a wonderful thing. Wonderful experience, too, talking with people and sharing some of the history and some of the ghost stories of Staunton, as well as hearing people's own personal experiences, too. It's kind of one of the best things about it, really, to be honest with you.
So what are some of the notable spots here in town that you actually do take your tours through?
Okay. Well, there's several that we go through, but some of the stops I'll mention on our tour. One, we start with Mary Baldwin University. Right above Beverly Street on Lewis Street there.
Yeah, very famously haunted.
It is. There's a lot of stories there, a lot of connection there with Mary Baldwin, who served as principal there during the American Civil War. She passed away in 1897, and we still think she has a very strong ties. Hear a lot of stories from some of the students. We researched some of the history there. There's a very close connection. And one of the things that's very interesting about Mary Baldwin is when she took over as principal, it was right in the middle of the American Civil War. We're talking 1863. And there was a lot of effort from the War Department to close down the school and convert it over into a military hospital. And she fought all that off, kept the school open as a school, and it survived. It went on to prosper. But she was the type of individual, and we talk about that quite often on our tours. She was an individual that put her heart, her life, her soul into the well-being of the university, the location there. And it only stands to, reason that if she didn't move on in the afterlife, where else would she want to be except right there at the university that she played such a pivotal role in.
Yeah, all of her mental energy and emotional energy went into that campus.
Exactly. And we have a couple other locations in town that are similar. We have, there's a stop on Beverly Street. It used to be the old Emilio's Italian restaurant.
Okay.
Now the building's empty right now, but it started out, one of the stories associated with it was a candy store back in the early 1900s. A man named James Vames ran a business there called Vames' Candyland. And he managed it from 1923 until his death in 1972, where he nearly invested almost 50 years of his life there. It was his passion, everything. And he had actually immigrated over from Greece. So his heart, life, soul again, invested in this location. And it's believed that he haunts this location now in the afterlife.
Well, that's very interesting. I've been in that building many, many, many times. I didn't know that it used to be such a delightful, lighthearted little world of wonder for the children. And now it's apparently a paranormal spot.
It is. And there have been people that have actually, when it was Emilio's restaurant, that have witnessed him in there. They've seen a little man in a white frock coat like you would have back in the day. And it was actually, they used to have a photograph up on the wall as you would go in, when you'd go upstairs to go up to the Pompeii Lounge, the bar and restaurant upstairs. They had a photograph there in a news article from the Stanton Leader, photograph of him back in the day with his little white coat on, and he had like the wireframe glasses and all. Very interesting. It's interesting to know, too, that one person that happened to see him years ago, and this was up in the Pompeii Lounge, up on one of the upper levels. They were cleaning up after a Saturday night, running a bar and restaurant and everything. And he happened to be up on where you go out to where the patio is, and outside, clean off some of the tables out there. And he came back in, and when he was to go back out, right through the glass of the door, he could see a man there in a white frock coat. Very, scared the crap out of him. And he said that he ran off, and when he came back, there's no way. I mean, the guy was gone, but there was no way he could have come through without having to go back downstairs.
Right.
He would have had to pass by him, and that didn't happen. So he kind of kept it to himself for a short period of time, and then he did tell somebody. And they went on later on to show him that photograph of James Vames, and he was blown away. He said, "That's the guy I saw upstairs."
That is
just
incredible.
That one sighting that we know of him, but pretty cool nonetheless.
Well, I have a pretty strange story from being at the Pompeii Lounge as well. Now, this is not by any means paranormal, but I thought it's pretty interesting. I was in one of the bathrooms there one time. There's many bathrooms in that building. And as I was doing my business, up from the sink comes this, from the drain comes a bunch of dark brown liquid, just start bubbling up. And it frightened me a little bit, so I went downstairs and I told the bartenders that up from the sink was coming a bubbling crude, and they told me that the plumbing in there is just really bad and weird things like that happen.
Wow. Well, that's very interesting you say that, because there is another story that was relayed to us by the staff there of them, again, after hours cleaning up. Everything had been closed, all the customers were gone, and I'm not sure what floor this was on. Somebody was cleaning the restrooms and had went into men's restroom, began to prepare to get it ready to clean. They were doing a few things there, stepped back out, and someone turned the water onto the faucet there. Nobody was in there.
It was turned on by an unseen hand.
Turned on by an unseen hand,
oh, wow.
Yes. Yep. Had that story come out there. Another interesting thing, too, was a lot of people talked about the basement, where they keep their wine stored down there and all that. And other things. And they say a lot of times you come in the morning, you would hear someone as if they were walking down there in the basement, and they had loose brick. I don't know if you've ever heard somebody walk across loose brick, but you can hear it pretty clear. And there's several occasions where they'd hear somebody walking down there, and they didn't know nobody was there. It'd be very early in the morning, and there'd only be people there when they come in. But yet they'd hear that. A lot of them are afraid to go down the basement, afraid to go down there and get things. They want to go somebody with them, they'll copy them, feel better. And I could see that.
Yeah, in a haunted building, the last place you want to be is in a dank basement.
Yeah, especially when it's dark, like if you're coming in early and it's dark. And
Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand that. We had conversations with Mr. Emilio about investigating it, but it never come together.
Mhm.
And eventually, he closed up. One of the things, we had COVID that kind of come up on us.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was really just finding a date and time where we could do something. They ran pretty much had a busy schedule at one time. About the time when we were actually talking about, to stay open with the restaurant and stuff, it would have been late, very late, to get something going. And it just never, I regret that. I wish we could have been able to get in there and investigate.
Well, it may not be too late considering there's no business there at the moment, right?
I know, and I just found this out too, just actually this week, earlier in the week, and I did not realize it. I can't remember what was in there, but apparently they are closed up. Do you know what was in there right now? Or the latest? Was it something like it was another bar? Like what it was called? I can't remember.
I have no idea.
It's fairly recent, though. Yeah, I can't quite on that. I'm not sure, but I had heard it. Yeah, I'd heard it was empty again.
All right. So along the tour, you go down to Mary Baldwin, next stop Emilio's. I've always had questions as to whether the old Masonic building in town has any sort of paranormal activity. That's the one place you would expect, right?
You would expect that, yes, but I have dug around and we've not got any information as far as paranormally speaking. In regards to, a lot of people and myself included, when you walk through there and just looking up at it, it's like, wow, it's incredible looking, and you would think, but no, we don't have any paranormal ghost stories associated with that. And I've dug around. We do, just over from that, we do have a story that's very popular in regards to the SunTrust Bank, which used to be the Valley National Bank.
Oh, yeah. I used to work in that building.
Yeah. So are you familiar with Jimmy Atkins?
No, I'm not.
Well, Jimmy Atkins was a branch manager there back in the 1940s and 50s, and he was a very popular man here in town. And in the later years, I guess this would have been in the early 60s, he was relieved of his duties there. The economy wasn't doing too well. The bank was making cuts, and so they released him. He was another individual that was very much invested into the location. I think everybody loved him at the bank. He was a very popular guy, very nice man. People enjoyed him. And it was very disappointing for him to be let go like that. And he didn't take it very well. As a matter of fact, everything changed about him. His mood, just everything. And you could tell he was really upset about it. But then he started to bring personal possessions up to the bank and give out to certain employees. Not a good sign. And a short time later, he committed suicide. And it's believed that he haunts the bank. And I actually tell you the truth, of all the locations that we have in town that we talk about, there have been more apparitions cited at that bank than any in town. We get more reports, and they're all the same, about a man in an outdated blue suit with a narrow tie, hair kind of greased back, with glasses. Thin guy, not real thin, but thin. And the first sighting that had actually reported to us was from a maintenance person, not a maintenance, a custodial person was in there late one night, a Friday night cleaning, and actually hit his run to vacuum, and the vacuum had come unplugged, and he went over to plug it, bent over, went to plug it back in, and when he stood up, there standing about 20, 25 feet from him was a man in a blue suit.
Wow.
And yeah, it blew him away, and then he was just gone in a blink of an eye, right in front of him, just gone. There, 1 minute gone. And it's like, wow, okay, that's pretty neat. And then we heard another story where somebody was making a package delivery from FedEx, and they had come in through the back entrance there. And as they came through, they were walking through, and there was a vault open, and then there was a man standing there at the entrance of the vault in a blue suit with a narrow tie, and it looked outdated. It's not anything from our time and era, and so they just thought that odd, and they went up and told somebody, and they said that they had no idea who it was, and then they come back down through, and there's no man there, nobody around.
Oh, that's cool. That vault down there is very outdated looking as well. It looks very antique.
I thought that was quite interesting. And then we had one experience with a teller up there that had witnessed a man walk by in a suit, blue suit. She got a pretty decent look at him, but he had walked by and was walking in an area where he wasn't supposed to be, and she called out to him, and he just didn't acknowledge her at all. So she called out again and actually followed him. I don't think she was too close to him, but she was able to follow him down the steps. She thought maybe he might be looking for a restroom or something. And when he got down to the bottom of the steps, he turned, and when she came around the corner, he was gone. Just in the thin air, nowhere to be sighted. And she described it as an outdated suit as well. Again, navy blue. It's like, wow, okay, that's pretty interesting. Some of the things, other things that went on there with the elevator supposedly had a mind of its own. It would open and run on its own without anybody operating it.
Oh, wow.
Some of the tellers would have things or at their desk or at their counter there where, you'd have something fall or move, an object. There was a sense of, I guess, being watched. Some have even thought that they've heard somebody you hear somebody walk up on you from behind, turn around, there's nobody there. I think some of them thought, well, maybe, I'm working too hard, it's a long day. But then again, when you have other stories with Jimmy, that does play in the back of your mind. You know what I'm saying? It's people that do see. But it's an incredible location, and actually, they're in the process of restoring it. I don't know quite what the goal is with what they plan to use it for, but they had just recently had a ball there, Bankers Ball, last Saturday night. Yep, in regards to raising funds for renovations and stuff with it. So it was pretty cool.
You guys know I love coffee. I know you guys know I love coffee. And I hope you love coffee too, because now Odd Virginia is affiliated with Coffee Brand Coffee. Coffee Brand Coffee serves a variety of coffees, teas, and hot cocoa, in a variety of fashions. You can get whole bean or ground, K-cups, cold brew, loose leaf tea, powdered cocoa, and a good bit more at coffeebrandcoffee.com. All bags of coffee are roasted fresh to order, with a wide variety of flavors. Right now I'm sampling the pumpkin pie flavored coffee. Top notch for the fall season. This brand gets soaring reviews. No gimmicks, no frills, just high quality coffee. So when you go to coffeebrandcoffee.com, which you can find in the show notes below, you can get 10% off your order by using the affiliate code ODDVA. That's ODDVA at checkout for 10% off your order of coffee, tea, or cocoa. Every time that affiliate code is used at checkout, it goes towards making Odd Virginia happen. Who knew you could support the show just by buying coffee? Happy sipping, people. Let's get back to your regularly scheduled programming. So when I worked there, was a year and a half ago, almost 2 years maybe, and they were doing the renovations. They were tearing everything up, and I know that there was a plan up there on the wall as to what they were doing with it. I don't know what they were going to use it for, but my buddy Bill, who I worked with at the time, he actually offered me the job in that building. I believe is also the one who contacted you and got us in touch. When he hears this, he's going to be like, "Man, why didn't anything happen to us when we were working in there?" Because we were up on the third floor. We rode that elevator every day.
Yeah, we got all kinds of stories about that elevator. And, and it's interesting because at the basement level, with the first sighting of Jimmy with the custodian was right there near the elevator, from what I understand.
Oh, that's crazy.
Oh, interesting.
Considering I was so close.
I love it. You want to hear a funny story? We were doing a ghost tour one night in the bank. Of course, on this particular tour is a stop there. It's a prominent stop. And I was serving as kind of like security for the back end of the group. We had a pretty large group, wanted to keep them together, everybody together, and keep the group moving at a good pace. And we are there at the bank, and the tour is actually doing the story of Jimmy, and she's through right on the front there, where the rotating door. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, anyways, she's there, got the group's attention and everything. And there's like a dim light on in the background, maybe like a lamp or something. Not enough that you would really pay it any mind. But all of a sudden, as she's standing there, and I'm watching her too, tell the story, all of a sudden that door starts to rotate and turn. And everybody's mouth is just like, what? We're like, what the? So I'm like, I go up there and I look over there, and it's actually custodian cleaning down around the bottom of it. I was like, oh, wow. Okay, that's good to know. But you couldn't see that from the steps there. I mean, from the sidewalk, you couldn't tell. I mean, all you see was the top of the door moving, just going around, and you're like, oh, my.
Yeah, custodians can be pretty scary, too, when they're working odd hours.
Yeah, they can. And this was a Friday evening. They would have been in there on a Friday and said, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. All right, I got you. But yeah, it's a fun stop. And that's actually one of the original stories from 2008. That Mary Baldwin and Amelia's, they're all from 2008, and they're still with us to this day.
How about Thornrose Cemetery? I've heard a few things about that. Have you?
I don't know too much paranormally speaking. I've not heard anything other than just a lot of the people that are involved with our tours downtown are buried in there, like Mary Baldwin.
Okay.
John Eccles, who would have originally founded the bank. And we have a story too, which I'll share a little bit later on with a lady named Charlotte Kaufman. But I really don't know anything paranormally wise. I do find it a fascinating cemetery. And actually, to tell you the truth, we did tours in there. They weren't really ghost tours, they weren't historic tours about 10 years ago. Did it for a period of about 2 years. Of course, it would have been, it's always ideal if you can do a ghost tour in a cemetery at night. I mean, who wouldn't like that?
Absolutely.
we could not get permission to do that. So
that's a shame.
Yeah. But the historic tours we did for a couple of years. They were I won't say they were real popular. We had people interested, but not to the degree to kind of keep it going. And so it just kind of fizzled out after a couple of years.
So while you do give these tours, has anything spooky ever happened during the tour?
Yeah, we've had a few experiences on the tour, and one of the things when I'm downtown and if I'm able to introduce a guide, and I like to do that, I like to be involved and come down to people. I do tell our groups that we do have things happen on occasion on the tour, and if they want to share that, we would be happy to post it. We have actually a link from our website called Paranormal Database, and what it is, it's a collection of stories, personal experiences, photographs, you name it, over the years of which we submit, and we give the person full credit for that. So do mention that. And I'll tell you one of the things, I guess one of the first experiences actually starts with myself, because very early on when I had started the tours, I was actually, one evening I had a tour guide that we were training. And one of the things before we release a tour guide to do the tour completely on their own is they have to do a tour for me. And I had a guide down there one night. We were out about doing a tour, and we were down at the depot station right across from the American Hotel. And we're sitting there on the benches, and it's just me, and she's actually standing up and doing the tour and the story for me. And there's nobody down there. And about the time, this is near the end of the route, and it's a little after 10, so it's quiet down there. There's nobody anywhere around. It's a cool night, and she's telling her story and everything. And one of the things I was doing with this particular guide, and I do it in general, is I like to tape and record some of the stories, because I go back and I use those for future reference if I'm with training with other guides. So I taped her story down there in regards to talking about some of the things happening at the depot station. Well, when I got home, I got it on the computer and everything, and I was listening, going back through it and putting in a file in a folder. And I noticed an area there where she was talking and telling her story, and I kept hearing this whispering. And again, like you say with EVP, I couldn't decipher. I couldn't understand what was being said, but it was a continual whisper for, about 15 seconds. And I know it wasn't me. I was there. I actually wanted to be quiet because I want to record this and I want the best quality. You know what I'm saying? In the audio clip, but yet I can hear her whispering and I can't decipher it. And she's telling her story, and I'm the only other person down there. I don't know who was whispering.
Wow. But
they were fairly close to the recorder, because I could tell it was close up enough to the recorder that they had to be within a couple feet of us. And it was very interesting. My only regret was I could not, and like I say, one of the things with EVP and audio, sometimes it is very hard to decipher and understand what's being said. I do know one thing in regards to that experience. It was not her whispering, and it was not me. And the recorder picked it up as clear as if someone would have been sitting right next to me.
This was at the depot station?
That was at the depot station, right across from the American Hotel, where the rows of seats are for people that usually go up and catch the Amtrak.
Right.
If you've noticed those.
So I've heard before a telltale of a ghost in what was the Pullman ice cream parlor, which is right there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And we talk about her, too, on our depot tour, and some on our haunted history tour. You're talking about Myrtle Knox, the girl that was killed in a train wreck in 1890. Yeah, she was a young, she was actually part of an opera troupe. And they were on their way from Cincinnati to Baltimore. And they stopped over briefly. They were going to stop over briefly here in Staunton and do a performance. This would have been in 1890. Folks were very excited about it. stand. They'd never had anything like that. And she was a young rising star, actually the star of the troupe. She could sing and everything. And so they were to come in here, I think it was April 28th. They were coming here on April 28th, 1890. And there was actually a group of people up there excited. They wanted to greet them when they arrived. Anyways, they were late getting there, a few hours late. And finally, when they did come through, the train, actually what had happened was the brakes gave out on a train several miles outside of town. And they were already delayed. Well, when it came in here at about 70 miles an hour. And amazingly, the train did not derail. But when they come through right there at the platform, the depot station, the last car actually did derail and went off and wrecked, wiped out a good portion of the platform. And that's where the opera troupe was actually staying on the back car. And she was the only casualty there. There were several people that were hurt, rushed to the hospital and whatnot, but she died outright right there on the platform. She had her left leg was severed, and her right leg, she had one of her major arteries had been ruptured, and she bled out outright up there. And so it's believed that, and we have a lot of stories involving with her, that she haunts the depot station, the platform there, as well as the Pullman.
That is an absolute tragedy. And I've got chills right now because I'm just imagining the spookiest thing I could think of when it comes to ghostly hauntings is an operatic singing voice coming from thin air.
Yeah, I know it is. And there are people, some of the experiences, and I've talked to a lot of people that worked at the Pullman back in the day, as well as I interviewed an assistant manager there at the time. And he told me one incredible story, which involves the Pullman restaurant. They were coming in early one morning to do inventory, and he had arrived at, I guess, about a little after 5 in the morning. He was the first one to get there, and he went up the steps and put the key in to open the door. And he heard, as he opened the door, he actually heard a piano playing from inside the restaurant. And it freaked him out. It scared him. So basically what he did was he shut the door and locked it back, and he went back and sat in his vehicle till everybody else arrived. And then they went in to check it out. And it's interesting to note, because he did tell me, he said that they had an old player piano that had sat back in one of the rooms, and a storage room. It had a tarp on it and other supplies and whatnot. It had been, nobody even knew if it worked for years. It was just in a corner somewhere. And he said if it was that playing, it was playing very well.
Wow.
And it did. It scared the crap out of him. And I was talking with the staff. Some of the other things that happened there was like in one of the dining room areas there as you come through, they have candles and stuff on there. And, when you're closing, you make sure all of them are out. And they say you come through a short time later and they're all relit again.
Whoa.
There were people that claimed they witnessed a woman in kind of like a Victorian dress, light blue, anywhere from light blue to white, like out on the platform. Sometimes she would look in the windows there, kind of amazed to kind of watch people eat. People would be annoyed about it. He'd say something about it, and then she'd be gone. A younger girl, too. She would have been about 17 years old when she was killed.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. And some of the research we did with her was very interesting, too. She, like I said, she was a very bright star, wonderful voice, everything about her, very talented. But her father was against her joining the opera troupe and didn't want her to do that. He didn't want her traveling, but she did anyways. And, of course, she met her end here in Staunton. And it's a shame. It is a tragedy. There are people that we have that will come on the tour, that tours there, that claim to be much more sensitive to those type of things. Mm-hmm. They feel like they feel her around, her presence. We do a variety of different tours through the area. One's, with part of the haunted history, but we do another tour, which we call our Haunted Depot tour, that features a spirit box. And what we do is we begin to actually introduce people to EVP and the use of a spirit box. Are you familiar with the spirit box?
Yes, sir.
It's an interesting tool. We decided to actually put that on that particular tour, where we would share audio clips from the spirit box that we've captured, not only down at the depot station, but just in general, some of the better clips, explain about how it worked, the whole process, everything, the theory behind it, and then do a live session down there with the group in which they can participate and ask questions based on the history and info that we share with them about the depot station, Miss Myrtle Knox and other people as well, and ask their questions. And of course, we record the whole session while it's going on. Sometimes with the spirit box, you can hear things come across the box very loud, very clear, and you can understand them, and you can go, wow. Other times, not so much. But what we explain is, regardless session is recorded, and we will evaluate it afterwards, because sometimes you can pick out little voices or things here and there that people don't hear with that. So it's very popular. We've had some success down there, a lot of success actually with the spirit box. And you want to know the irony with it is, when we first started doing this 10 years ago, I'm going to be honest with you, I was one of the biggest skeptics out there. I thought it was a bunch of and a couple of reasons. Number one, I will tell you, you have to remember it is radio.
Yeah.
Even though it's cycling through the band, it's radio. And then the second thing, I think sometimes you can hear what you want to if you're looking for a specific answer or something. You can hear what you want to hear. And, those are just a couple things you need to be aware of with it. But I will say this, I've been using the box 10 years, and we do use it on our investigations. Some of us use it more than others. I use it less frequently, although I do use the box. My number one preference with audio is straight up EVP with a recorder without the help of any radio. But then I do use the box probably a short period of time. But anyways, going back to that, I'm on board with it now. I do think I've heard enough of it now over 10 years to believe it's something to it. I wish I could tell you what. I don't know. I'll be honest with you, I don't know what the process is with it, but I do think it's an interesting tool to use. And so we've kept the depot tour going where we use it. And like I said, we use the box on our investigations as well.
Well, that is awesome. I've always been kind of the same way with the spirit box, especially when I first heard about it. Like, how on earth is that investigation tool? It's just flipping through random bands, it seems like. But
yep, and there's so many things, like you said earlier, just with EVP in general, is being able to decipher what's being said.
Right.
There's so many different things with it that can go in different directions, and people can hear what they want to hear. And I see that happen all the time. The thing I will say about the box, and the only reason I say that is because I've done it long enough. And it's like repetition. The more you do it, the better you get with it. You get a better ear. And it's the same thing with EVP. Like if I'm listening to straight up EVP, and I'll tell you, our recorders are sensitive enough; they can capture your stomach growling, you clearing your throat, or anything. All those little noises that can sound you can make it sound like whatever you want, like get out, go home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, I think it's repetition. The more you do it, you get a better ear for it. You can sample and you can separate some of those things. And plainly, when you're in the box, I can tell like when there's music cadence or if it's radio or something. But I can also tell too when there's an underlying voice there that's going continuously through something, like a full sentence or something. I might not know what's being said exactly. I will be able to decipher all of it. And I know there's someone saying a sentence there and it's not stopped. You know what I'm saying? It's because it continuously moves through the band, whether it's forward or backwards. It continuously moves.
Right.
So those are some of the things. I also too I evaluate a lot of different things with how close I can tell or sample how close I think someone is to the actual recorder. Things like that. The things with the stomach and stuff. One of the things we do with audio is we are. I like to have a strict protocol with it where we tag everything. If there's outside noise and we're doing a session, you tag it. Like if someone's stomach's growling, you say, okay, so-and-so's stomach's growling. Just helps with review. I like to keep the sessions extremely short, about 2 minutes, sometimes 3. Reason being, it's much easier to review and there's less possibilities of contamination. The downside of that is when you turn it on and off, though, you always have the risk of something going through and you miss it. But I'll still take that trade-off.
So out of all of your gadgets and tools that you use in your investigation, which part of your kit do you think yields the most consistent results?
Audio, without a doubt.
What sort of recorder do you like to use?
I have a Zoom H2 that I use.
Okay.
I've had it for about 5 years and I love it. It's very practical. I actually have a little plug-in with a remote that I hold in my hand. I don't even have to touch it physically. I just hit the remote and there she goes. It's very easy, handy. I love the quality of it. I've had success with it. I remember back in the day when I started, I used some of those micro cassette, little mini cassette things there and all that. And but I've pretty much stayed with the Zoom right now. Very practical, easy to carry around, and the quality's good for me. Going back to, like I said, with our protocols and procedures, but we do like to tag the things. We like to mention when things happen. I just don't believe in letting a recorder run and leave it alone. I think you need to be there with it because there's just so many potential pitfalls to contamination or whatnot, or things that could be misconstrued. And so I really like to keep the session short, brief, get to my questions, allow that pause for an answer, then move on, and then start a new recording, and just continually like that. So much easier to review, and it's I feel more confident with it, knowing that actually aware too of how I'm doing it. I know early on when the group was quite large, we'd have people who would turn it in and literally get like a 15 or 20-minute clip. And then sometimes the person's not with the recorder or something. And you don't want that. You want somebody you want to be there the whole time. Again, you want them short. To me, it's just more practical. It's also more credible too.
Okay. Now, in your time doing paranormal investigation, has there ever been a place where somebody's reached out to you and said, you absolutely have to come and check out my property or my place of business because I'm sure there's something going on here and I need confirmation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have. We've had a few people. We used to do quite a few residential locations. We don't do as many now just because we're working older and stuff, and we don't get quite as many inquiries. But yeah, we have. We've had a few locations, and I would always tell people, even to this day, if somebody were to contact me in regards to a residential investigation, I explain simply, we're more of a group that would try to validate or debunk possibly. We're not anything like exterminators or anything to cross anybody over. We don't do anything like that. We're not qualified to do anything like that. And I also explain the risk of having somebody come in to do a paranormal investigation in your home. If there is activity going on, about the possibility and potential of it increasing.
Yes.
There's a lot of things you have to cover with it because there are a lot of liabilities with it. That's another reason why we don't do quite as many. I've had everything from people we've been able to help that have had really serious, legitimate concerns to other people where there were other issues involved.
Yeah.
They weren't on the paranormal side.
I understand that completely. But has there ever been a time where you went in expecting, I mean, we assume that these paranormal entities that we're talking about are the spirits of those who have passed on from this life onto the next.
Right.
And every now and then come back to make a visit. But have you ever experienced anything that wasn't quite that, do you think?
I will honestly say I don't think I have. At least not that I'm aware of. Now, I will tell you, though, we've been to locations where we have gotten some stuff that's not been pleasant. And I'll say that in regards to mainly audio. We've had people that haven't felt well afterwards. But I think a couple things with that, and I do say this in regards to terms of audio, and I explain it even to our group to this day when we go to certain locations, you kind of expect, I'll give you an example. Like if we were to do the West Virginia State Penitentiary, which we've investigated several times, I was going with the mindset that we might not come out of there with the most pleasant audio.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Because you got to take into account who was there. And I just think each location is different. If you go to location 2 where there's been a horrific crime committed and maybe the killer is still there, and that, you're not going to get the most pleasant things. And I've had things come across, audio that has not been pleasant. And, I have not, to my knowledge, I have not been physically attacked or anything like that. I might have gotten some audio and EVP I didn't really care for, but I've not. And really, knock on wood, for me, and I think, and we even stress that, it's all, as far as the negative side, we all have different personal beliefs. Some of us, I like to imagine good things. Some of the times when I leave a location, I'll say, hey, it's been nice getting to know you or talk or chat or be here, but you can't come home with me.
Right.
Those type of things. I try to think good thoughts, think of white light, or even some of us even say a small prayer or something before we go in and do an investigation. I've had people on our ghost tours, I've actually had people that come out and give me many things when they have, especially when they found out we were doing a certain investigation. I've had people give me holy water. I've had people give me a crucifix. We went to, I don't know if you're familiar with Bobby Mackey's Country Music World. Have you heard of that?
I've heard of it, but I've never, I'm not familiar really.
Okay, well, it's a location. It's a country music bar in Wilder, Kentucky. It's been on all the shows. It's supposed to have a lot of satanic ties with some rituals and stuff, and for things that were performed in the basement, with one being a beheading.
And that's why I'm familiar. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's known as, there's a book out called Hell's Gate and all that, and it's been, it's quite popular, and I believe somewhat commercialized.
Yeah, I believe it was on the Paranormal Witness show.
Probably so. I know it's been on a lot of them. I know Ghost Adventures have been there, and Ghost Hunters. I mean, they were all back there in the early day. They've been back here. So we went out there, and we had posted that we were going out to investigate, and we had a lot of people voice concern, and I had a lot of things come in. And one of the things in there, it doesn't make me real popular in the paranormal world, because I do say, and I even, when people do ask when we talk about investigating on our tours or whatnot, from my personal experiences in 23 years, it's not anything like television. Okay,
Yeah.
it's more like watching grass grow or paint dry.
Uh-huh.
But when you get something paranormal, it's pretty cool. Now, one thing that always amazes me with the shows as well on these, I get it, I understand that why, but when some of these locations in the haunts, why is it always associated on a negative side? And who determines what's demonic and whatnot? Who's qualified to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we know, and we've actually been approached before with a television show years ago, and we had actually done a Skype interview, and we hadn't gotten no more than about 10 minutes into it, and we were asked how far would we go, or how far would we be willing to go to push the lines as far as what was actual and what was not.
Yeah, that sounds like television.
Yeah. It just ruined something, but yeah, well, we weren't comfortable with it, and of course we never heard back from them again.
And this is why I generally don't watch those ghost investigation shows. It's because there's so much there that's being manufactured for entertainment value.
Exactly, and it's so bad. I watch them still, but I don't watch them to the as much as I used to. And the only reason I watch them now is more for entertainment, or if there's a certain location historically that appeals to me, then I would like, okay, yeah, I'd like to, just because of the history. I give you one, like I have a bucket list. There's many places on there, but my number one place on my bucket list is Alcatraz.
Oh, yeah.
I'm fascinated, not with the haunteds. I'm more fascinated with the history. I just want to see it.
Well, they have tours out there, don't they?
They do, and we've actually discussed going out there and doing something. A paranormal investigation would probably, a private one anyways, would be off limits. But I just want to see it, and that's another thing I'll talk about. When I first started with the paranormal investigating, the very first investigation I did was a public investigation, and it was at the West Virginia State Penitentiary. It was also the last one. And I was excited like anybody else, chance to go out and be in a penitentiary and investigate. But it's just not anything that's legitimate. I mean, we were in there with 72 people.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
It's not anything could be anything there, yeah.
Anything could be anything. And so after that, then once the group formed, everything we do now is private investigations. If we go to a location, we rent it, and we take a size, I won't say a large group, but we take a group that still keeps the integrity of the investigation, but yet it's enough to be able to cover the space as well. If that makes sense.
Yeah. You don't want too many cooks in the kitchen in one of these circumstances.
No, you don't. And I find out even one of the things, even from for me learning in the early years, if you take a group that's too big, you not only can sacrifice the integrity of the investigation, but it's just more problematic, so to speak. You have somebody that can't make it, cancel out, or wait, or there's, and there can be drama problems too, just within the group with people in general. You ask for a lot more problems the larger the group is, and I've found that it's much better when you have a smaller group, even if you have to sacrifice to pay more additionally out of your pocket if you're renting a location. And all these locations we've been to, like the West Virginia State Penitentiary, Fort Mifflin, done the Lizzie Borden Bed and Breakfast, all these places. Yeah, we don't mind paying out and rent it to have it for a night.
I never even thought that it would cost money to do an investigation like that. I mean, to get the equipment, I'm sure, but...
Yeah, you don't only have to cost the equipment, but the locations as well, especially some of the more well-known locations. And supposedly most of the money's put back in the restoration of the location.
Okay.
And that's a good thing. We've done some of the places we've done like Penhurst Asylum. We've done the USS North Carolina Battleship, West Virginia Pen, which I told you about, Fort Mifflin, the Lizzie Borden Bed and Breakfast up in Fall River, did the Myrtles Plantation down Louisiana's St. Francisville, Tombstone, Arizona, the Birdcage Theater, all over, not a lot of them. Some of my favorites, actually, where I think at least where we've had the most success, believe it or not, are asylums.
I definitely believe it.
Yeah, Penhurst was quite successful for us. We've also had some success. We did Rolling Hills Lunatic Asylum up in Bethany, New York. We've done Hillview Manor in Bedford, Pennsylvania. Butler, excuse me, Pennsylvania, and on and on. But actually two that I have not done that would be high on my bucket list, but it's just not going to happen, would be, of course, DeJarnette Sanatorium, and the other would be Western State Lunatic Asylum.
I was about to ask.
Well, it's off limits, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, on this very show, we had a guest, I think episode number 8, who was a security officer down there at Western State back when it was still in the old premises. And he had to do checkups on the DeJarnette Center as well. And he had some undeniable experiences in there.
That's incredible. I'd like to hear those sometime. I mean, that's incredible. I get a lot of stories and information on both locations. Frontier Culture Museum, I don't know if you're aware of, they actually own D. Jarnett Sanatorium, the property there in the buildings. And I know I had approached John Avoli, used to be mayor of Stanton, and he was actually at the time curator of Frontier Culture Museum. I had approached him several times about doing a paranormal investigation there. I'd pay $1,000. Let me have it one night. I'll sign any waiver, any form you need. And it was it was a no. And the biggest issues with it, and this is how he explained it to me, there's asbestos. There's serious issues with asbestos in there. There's some areas that aren't structurally sound. And also, too, they still have homeless people that are in and out of there, and some addicts. So he said it's just not doable. But through talking with him, he did eventually allow us to do ghost tours on the property. We could not go inside, but he would allow us to do ghost tours on the property. And the way we had it set up, we would do one ghost tour every Saturday, and we had to do it between the hours of 4 and 6 p.m. one Saturday in October. And it's pretty hard to do a ghost tour in broad daylight, but nonetheless, we would walk people up the road, up to the front of the buildings. And what I did was I actually put a tour guide with a microphone up on the steps. And then down below, you had like a sort of a mini parking lot that expanded out. And so people could branch out. You could take photographs, get all the information. And it was very successful. We ran it for about 4 years there. The last year was 2016. It sort of went astray, though, because once we got out into the media was covering us. We had WHSB, TV 29 out of Charlottesville, social media, podcasts and whatnot. But once it got out there, the break-ins and vandalism went off the charts, and that's where it kind of went astray. And that's what ultimately ended it. I will tell you, the last year we did tours there. We're doing one tour every Saturday in October. Every one of those tours was over 100 people. Oh, wow. The last ghost tour we gave there was 175 people.
My God.
And that's not even going inside the buildings. And I had conversations with John in regards to, well, what's the potential of us going in there and seeing what it would cost to clean it up and do more, And he did allow us to take a team in there, but we never got far enough with it to get a response back. I mean, as far as could it go forward? They've had the property up for sale, and the whole thing with it, anything that would be invested in it, you have the potential of losing it if it were to be bid, and a successful bid and then go forward, you would be out anything you invested in it. So that's one of the reasons it never really took off, unfortunately. I know the last season that we had done ghost tours there, the week of Halloween, they actually caught 13 people that week just trespassing alone. And back then, it was a $500 fine. I think there was like 20 hours community service and then court costs. And I've been told recently, I can't verify this, but I've been told that fine is up to $2,500 now.
Wow.
If you're trespassing. And I have to be very careful. I like to post stuff because I like the history and stuff. And I will post stuff in regards to D. Jarnett from time to time. But we get so much interaction if it gets shared around. And a lot of it can be negative, like people are planning on a trip up there. And I had one guy, I had posted something about it a few weeks ago, and I got a response from a guy that actually messaged me about making money in there, and he was in there, and I should listen to all this. And he was in there, and I was saying, man, you can't be doing that. You can't trespass. I would go in there if I could do it legally, but I'm not going in there, illegal. And he was on and on about him doing other stuff, and I'm like, nah, it's not good. I don't like to do that. I don't like to trespass. I can't get access to a location. I just move on to another one.
I agree. I absolutely will not touch that place. I've grown up in and around Stanton since I was 9. And how many times have people asked me, hey, let's go down to the Desjardins Center and break in through a window or whatever. Yep. Nope. Not risking it.
Yeah.
Sorry to say. And just about everybody I know's done it, but I'm not going.
Yeah. Well, this guy, he was putting it to me like he was basically going to do something out there and make money. I don't think he's going to get very far, though.
No, I wouldn't think so.
And I had, even when we did ghost tours, I had all kind of opportunities to go inside the buildings. I actually would have people from the Frontier Culture Museum ride up there on a little golf cart, say, hey, I can take you and show you all around. But I never would. And the biggest reason was, well, number one, I had a lot to lose from the tours. I didn't want to do anything to screw up the ghost tours there. They were very successful. We were having fun doing it. Mm-hmm. The second thing is I just don't do it. I don't trespass unless I have expressed written consent or permission from John Avoli when I go into them. And so I never did get to. It's a place, it's on my bucket list that'll remain on there. I don't see it ever happening. And the interesting thing is too, shortly after our time of doing ghost tours there, we actually received 2 calls from paranormal shows wanting to get in there. They had discovered the information on our website, and so they wanted to know more. One of them was Ghosts of Staunton, which is Tennessee Wraith Chasers, and the other was Destination Fear. And in both cases, I directed them to the Frontier Culture Museum. Wished them luck, of which they had none, and and never heard any more from them or any more about it. So I pretty much figured. And I had actually, I'm not, like I said, I don't watch the shows like I used to. Back when I did, it was mainly like Ghost Hunters or Ghost Adventures. I did like Ghost Lab a little bit, but other than that, I'm not too familiar. But the last call I had got from Destination Fear, after I had got off the phone with the producer, I just decided to go look at some of their stuff. And after I had watched it, I was like, oh no, there's no way. They're not going to go for that. Everything is demonic, or everything is just very negative. And I'm like,
Yeah, they got to put that spin on it. Make it more palatable
yeah,
for someone who's looking for a friend.
There's no way. No. And so I never heard from them again. But yeah.
I'm a bit curious, Marty, from a insider's perspective. Is there any like bones of contention between different paranormal investigation groups and the TV shows and all that sort of stuff?
Do you mean like as far as
like a competitive aspect where people are just talking mad crap on each other?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's one of the worst. It's one of the worst things in the field. And to be honest with you, I was guilty of it myself when I first started out. It is. It's a lot of everybody thinks they're going to be the next television star, and you're not really after you've done it a while. And really, your goals and everything changes. I think if you really invested into it, the further you go, you kind of realize that you get it. Now I'm at the point where I just want to investigate, have fun with our group, and collect evidence and data. And I like to present and share that with people. But there's a very competitive thing with it. And I always say this too. And I've met a lot of very interested people. I've met a lot of wonderful people. I've met a lot of bad people. And I continually stress this. I think you have more to fear in the paranormal field for the living than you ever do the dead.
Yeah.
That's my own personal belief.
Well, that goes pretty well into just everyday life as well.
Yep. I really honestly believe that. And, there are people that do this on a much darker side of it. Mm-hmm. A much darker side, and I'm not into any of that. Absolutely not. I'm the evidence data guy. I want to get a good video. I want to get a photograph. I want to get an audio clip. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy the history. I enjoy learning more about the history. Even though I'm a big Civil War buff and I love Gettysburg, I learn something new about Gettysburg every time I visit. That's the cool thing about it. You always learn. You're always even in the field. You're always learning something new. Always learning something new.
Yeah.
And so that makes it fun for me.
And these Civil War spots are rife with absolutely crazy paranormal activity all the time. It seems like, I mean, half of the stories I hear are Civil War spots.
Mm-hmm. They are. And, I'm very passionate about how I like to investigate. I'm the type of person, I want to know as much information going in. I want to know as much historical information, and I want to do my best to relate with that time period. Whether it be, and I'll use a lot of trigger objects. I'll use anything when we're talking Civil War, anything from, clothing, things that would have been used back in the day. I have a jaw harp, which I play. I'm terrible at it.
It's such a fun instrument, though.
Yeah, it is. I just like, wow, that man. I struggle with it. Anyways, I actually end up taking it out and I whistle a little bit. And I have books and stuff and information on Civil War slang, terminology, things to say or would have been, popular back in that time, and to try to avoid talking like we do today, because I figure in the most part on a lot of things, they're not going to understand what you're saying. So I stress those things. I try to stay connected in that regard. And the more I can know and learn and use that in some of my line of question, whether it be military strategy, just general lifestyle, or beliefs. There was a very different time for beliefs and stuff and values. All that, take into an investigation and use it. I like to, and again, like I said earlier, I'm really passionate about audio. I do video and photography as well, but I'm really passionate about audio because I do believe it is some of the easiest data you can obtain. I think if you take an audio recorder and you ask those questions, and you're very strict in your protocols, and you're trying to basically to control the environment as much as you can around yourself, and you ask those questions to get a response back on your recorder. I do think it's very intriguing for one, but I think it's very easy to do as well. I tell people you'd be surprised what you do if you did it the right way, what you might capture on audio recorder. You'd be very surprised. And I can tell you honestly, over the years, it's been the majority of evidence and data that we've captured has been in the form of audio.
Yeah.
So I do think there is something to it. Again, like I said, I like to do a lot with trigger objects, whether it's, Civil War, or if I'm even trying to interact with children, I'll do things with toys or lights or, again, just anything to connect on that time level. Now with EVP and audio, I do have a couple of different methods I like to use in regards to communication. One is, knowing all the information, a simple Q&A, based on all the historical research I've done. The second is to still stay with that, but yet to get some things incorrect to see if they're corrected, whether it be a date or mispronounce something, or just to see if it's corrected. And then another method I go is basically explaining who I am and what I'm after, and that is basically evidence and data to know what it's like on the other side, because someday I'm going to be right there with you.
Uh-huh.
And then the last thing I will use, and that's when I've run out of everything, is just start talking about myself. In my life, I work my job, I hate it, blah, blah, blah. I do carry a sense of humor in with this, and I think you have to. You've done it as long as me. And I'd say that right up front when I'm even trying to communicate with the other side. Hey, I have a little bit different sense of humor. I like to laugh, I like to smile, I like to have a good time.
A very human connection, it sounds like.
Yeah, I want to make a connection. I don't mean to insult anybody. Don't take it like that, but I just, and I do. I have fun with it. I do.
Well, Marty, that is excellent. Now we're just a bit over an hour now, which means we're running out of time here. But I want to ask you just a couple of quick questions before we sign off.
Okay.
First of all, about the ghost tours, just if anyone's curious or interested in going on one, which may be unlikely at this point, considering you guys are probably well booked, but where could they find out more information on the ghost tours?
Well, you can go to our website. It's ghostofstaunton.com, and ghost is plural. We have links there to all the tours we're offering for October, as well as tickets, information, ticket links where you can purchase tickets. We are filling up, but we're running a lot of tours, and we still have a lot of availability for our tours. And we actually offer 4 different tours for the month of October. Our first is our Haunted History Tour. It's Stanton's Haunted History. That's a 90-minute tour through town that features strictly the history of the city, the history of the locations, the ghost stories, people's own personal paranormal experiences. And then we have our second tour is our Dark Tales and Haunts of the Queen City. It's kind of a combination of ghost stories, history, mysteries, legend, lore, unsolved murders. It's got a little bit of everything. And I'll give you an example. One of the stops is across from the Blackburn Inn, in which they talk about Western State Lunatic Asylum. They talk about the practices and methods back in the day, as well as the eugenics program from the early 1900s, which actually went all the way up to the early 1970s, if you can believe that. To me, that's mind-blowing. It is. It blows my mind. But we talk a little bit about that. And we actually have some other things in town that we talk about. One being a UFO sighting that happened down in Brands Flat. We talk about a serial stalker and rapist from 1979 at Mary Baldwin University. That was actually the case was solved by a psychic.
Wow.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. Like I said, it's got a little bit of everything on this tour. And then the last two that we do, one of our newer tours, we call it Victorian Ghostly Encounters. It begins right up from the other side of the old Stonewall Jackson Hotel. We have the first half of the tour, you walk around what we call the Gospel Hill District right there on Colorado Street. We tell you a lot of things with Victorian culture, traditions, morning beliefs and practices. An example, one of the things we touch into is postmortem photography. But anyways, we walk you, while we're discussing this, we walk you up to the Spots Coffin House, which is on Coulter Street. It's one of our original stops from back in the day, and it's a Victorian home. We tell you all about who we believe haunts it, a lady named Miss Charlotte Coffin. Known as the Black Widow in Staunton. Very peculiar, very eccentric, and believed to have been connected in the deaths of her second husband and possibly her first. Most of this is small town talk. She's been acquitted of those now. But anyways, we tell you all the information, the stories involving her, but then we turn it over to the homeowners, and they bring you inside the house, and they give you a little bit more deeper into the history of her, the history of the home, as well as their own personal paranormal experiences there now. Now, that's our newest tour. And then our last one, again, like I talked about earlier, was the Depot tour, which we do right before Halloween, the weekend before Halloween and Halloween night, where we take you to the Depot station, get into the history and stories there, and then we do stuff with EVP and the Spirit Box in which you participate.
Cool.
So, yeah.
I didn't know that the tours covered such a wide variety of topics, that you had so many different tours for those different subjects. That's amazing to me that there's just that much to delve into here in town.
It is. And, the thing with the Dark Tour, we realized as we were putting that together, and, not everything was paranormal. Some of it was just really incredible. It was different. It was it's part of a darker side of town that a lot of people don't know about, which is interesting in itself. And so we presented as such. And then the other thing with the Depot Tour, we thought, well, it's interesting to tell the stories and history there and the people's own personal paranormal experiences, but what if we could add something to it where people can participate? And we've had success down there with groups. Now, I don't guarantee it, but we've had groups down there that have done audio sessions, and some of the audio that's come across with the box has been pretty good. It's been remarkable, actually. I never guarantee it. And one of the things with the Spirit Box, it could be a hit or miss. You can take it down there and use it, and nothing come through. You can go down there other times, and it can be like a chatterbox.
Wow.
It can, and people enjoy that. I mean, they do. So one of the things I find so interesting, and I love to do this, even when we do things like the library last night and last week, is when we get into audio, is being able to share those type of things and tell people. I always, like I say, when I play these, I will tell people the situation, how it was captured, where it was captured. I'm just not going to tell you what I think it's saying, because I don't want to plant that seed of suggestion and lead you. And once you do that, 90% of the group will agree with you. So I like to play it and let people tell me what they hear. Then we discuss it and how we come to our conclusion of what it is. I never say that our conclusion is finalized, because we don't know any more than anybody else, but I do explain how we come to our conclusion with it. And, like you said with audio, it is hard to decipher some of them, many of them.
Certainly. Yeah, you don't want there to be that confirmation bias in it. That's one of the problems when you're looking into these things, say on YouTube or whatever. They always put it on subtitles.
Yep.
It's like, well, I'm not even hearing what it says at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. And I don't like to do that when we're playing for them. I like for them to tell me. And I know just from with our group, and I still bounce stuff off of Lisa. She doesn't investigate. I'll let her listen to stuff, and she'll tell me what she hears. And a lot of times I'm like, "What planet are you? What?" No, I'm not hearing that. But no, I don't tell. I don't like to tell. I like people to tell me, then we discuss it.
Right. So my last question for you, Marty. Say little Timmy's out there and he's become ensconced in a fascination with the otherworldly, the paranormal, and wants to start getting into what you're doing. What sort of advice would you give to little 12-year-old Timmy?
I would give him the advice to be careful, but to start out with a strong basis in history. Always be respectful, and just take it very, very slowly. In talking with him, I wouldn't want to get into too much with the downside of it, but just to make him aware that there can be a good side of it, but there are also other things to explain. It's a process. It's not something you just jump right into. And I say that from my own personal experiences. I tell people I'm no expert in any kind of way. I'm not, but I do some things that I think are practical and work very well, at least for me and for our group. But it's a lot to it. It's a broad field. And as I said earlier, I think some of the things you have to look out for more so with the paranormal investigating is, like I said earlier, I believe you have more to fear from the living than the dead with this. Yeah. But regardless, you do have a level of respect. You have to have a level of respect for everything you do with the living and the dead and how you do it. And I think there's a way you do it. You do it in the right way. You be respectful. You don't provoke. You don't take advantage of locations or something. We don't do anything like that. I look at it more too. I say, and I tell people often, we've been to so many locations and not got any kind of evidence, and that's fine. I just enjoyed the investigation, and I will say straight up, just because we go to a location and do not get anything does not necessarily mean it's not haunted. I look at it more like perhaps they chose not to interact with you, and that's perfectly understandable. There's times in my life now I don't like to talk. And I just do. I think you have to be practical and very slow with it, and really have like a grassroots, a base of what you know is right and what's wrong. And I would say in regards to the television shows that for the most part, I don't see them as being a positive influence.
I'd agree.
No, I wouldn't. If you're watching television shows, I would probably. And if you're basing how you want to go as an investigator, I would say probably don't go that route. it's very hard to find somebody that could act in this field because so many people have different thoughts and viewpoints on it.
Yeah.
So
people come at it from every different angle.
They do. And really, if you're looking at something you want to, you have to really research a lot of different groups and compare them, because it's a lot more to it than most people would think. And I find, at least for me, and the integrity of our group, we want to be very respectful of what we do with the investigation, but very respectful for the living, the dead, the location, everything about it. I just don't want to, I don't want to put that out there where we offend anybody or we do damage or hurt anybody, whether they be the living or the dead. And I'm just very respectful with it. I am. I try to do as much. And for me, as being a person that really loves history, I can't preach enough of that. Get as much history and information as you can. Now, I know there are people that don't like to do that. We have some that like to go in, they're more on the metaphysical side of it, and they don't want that information. But I'm not of that cut, that mold, so to speak. I'm more the history. Get your information, develop a strategy. And it is a process. Actually, I have my grandson who's just actually starting to get into this somewhat. But he's not rushed right into it. He's been more like a camera guy with us, so he's kind of getting a little experience as he goes along with it. He will be 17 in another month, and so he does kind of the camera work for us, where he's got the shoulder mount and all that. And he's very good with it, and very good, much better than me.
That's a great way to get into it, I think.
It is, and so he can see and observe the behavior of what we do and how we do it, and that's kind of like it's like I said, it's something that you just don't learn or do overnight. It's for me, when I got into it, it was trying some different techniques, to being patient and just finding things that work for you, and still above all being respectful of everything. I can't stress that enough.
So in summation, know your history. Don't wade in too deep before you know you can swim, and respect your elders, whether living or dead.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Well,
yep.
Marty, I want to thank you so much for taking some time out of the October season to appear on Odd Virginia. I really appreciate it, and it was wonderful listening to you. I learned a lot.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. I enjoyed talking with you.
Well, thank you. Hmm? And stay odd, my friend. All right, that was Marty. A wonderful person to talk to. So many experiences. He's been at this for a long time, and I'm sure there's so much more he would have shared if given the chance to. Maybe we'll hear from him again someday. But for now, I just want to thank you guys for listening to Odd Virginia on this very special Halloween episode. I want to remind you to check out the show notes for the links to our Patreon or Buzzsprout subscriptions, where you can hear more stories from the Ghosts of Staunton. As well as just to say that I'm very happy to be affiliated with Coffee Brand Coffee. Primo coffee by people who care about coffee. And you can kill two birds with one stone. Get your coffee and support this show at the same time. So go ahead and check out Coffee Brand Coffee. Use checkout code ODDVA. You'll be making yourself and myself both very happy and supporting an independent coffee company. Now I'm about to get out of here because I have a ghost tour to attend. Stay odd, Virginia.